video, I'm sharing with you a Finnish Shrove Tuesday dessert called Laskiaispulla. These are cardamom flavored sweet buns filled with either almond paste or raspberry jam and topped with sweetened whipped cream and either sprinkled with powdered sugar or crunchy pearl sugar. They're absolutely delicious and a perfect decadent treat for the day before Ash Wednesday. So join me today as I share with you the recipe and the Finnish traditions that go along with it. And today is actually also a collaboration with Mikko over at Finish Your Plate. Over on Mikko's channel, he shares Finnish food and culture, and I've learned a lot about Finnish food from him, and I can't wait to see his recipe, which is going to be a modern savory twist on the Laskiaispulla. So make sure to check out his video and his channel after you watch this video. I will link it below. So let's get started and I will share with you how to make the traditional Laskiaispulla. First, we're going to begin with the buns. Pour 500 milliliters or 2 cups of whole milk into a small saucepan with 150 grams or 10.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter and 1 tablespoon of ground cardamom. Gently warm and melt everything on the stove, and there's no need to simmer or boil this. You're just melting the butter and steeping the cardamom in the milk to bring out the flavor. Remove it from the heat and pour it into a bowl and let it cool to about body temperature before proceeding. Now pour the cooled mixture into a stand mixer and add 90 grams or half a cup of sugar with 17 grams or 6 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast. Stir that together and let it sit a couple of minutes to dissolve the yeast. Now add in 800 grams or 5 3/4 cup of bread flour with 1 teaspoon of salt. You'll see me add the salt a little bit later because I forgot to add it here. Mix everything together and the dough should pull away from the sides of the bowl and be elastic but not stick to your fingers when touched. Let it knead for about 10 minutes or until it can pass the window pane test, which is where the dough doesn't rip when stretched and you can see light through the stretched piece. Then place it in a covered bowl in a warm place and let it rise for 30 to 45 minutes or until it's doubled in size. Once doubled, punch it down and then you're going to shape it into 12 buns. To get evenly sized buns, the easiest way to do this is by weighing your dough in grams and then dividing it by 12. That number is what each ball of dough should roughly weigh. Then to roll each piece of dough into a bun, smush all of the little pieces of dough together and then bring in the edges to the middle. Pinch them together and then roll them in a circular motion underneath your hand to seal the seam. Make sure to do this on an unfloured surface so that you have enough tension for shaping. While I do this, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of these buns. These are eaten on Shrove Tuesday, the day before Ash Wednesday, the day that Lent begins. All of the Nordic countries eat some kind of filled bun on this day, despite not being particularly religious countries, as you will hear Mikko explain later in the video. Filling buns with something for Shrove Tuesday dates back to at least the Middle Ages. Unwhipped cream and almonds started to be added to them sometime around the 16th century. And cardamom is a much later addition, most likely after industrialization when the spice became much less expensive and more accessible to everyday people. The wealthy families of the 17th and 18th centuries may have baked with the spice due to their more substantial means. In the 20th century is when the cream began to be whipped and piped on top, and in Sweden and Norway they eat these buns filled with almond paste, But in Finland, they also make the buns with raspberry or strawberry jam alongside the almond-filled ones, never combining the two, however. And sometimes in Sweden, they also eat these in a bowl of hot milk with a spoon. In Denmark and Iceland, they also eat filled buns on this day, but the dough is made with puff pastry and it's filled with either pastry cream or jam or almond paste and whipped cream. Let's take a look at our buns now. After you've shaped them, you're going to put 6 on each baking sheet spaced well apart and then cover them and let them rise for about 30 to 45 minutes or until they're doubled in size. Once doubled, brush them with an egg wash and then bake them in a 425 degree Fahrenheit or 220 degrees Celsius preheated oven for 15 to 20 minutes or until golden brown. And while they're baking, let's hear a little bit from Mikko on the Finnish traditions associated with Shrove Tuesday and these buns.
Hi everyone and welcome to Bake Across Europe. So for Shrove Tuesday, I figured I'll make a savory version of the Shrove Tuesday bun. Now this is absolutely not traditional at all, but since I'm in New York, I figured I'll make a version of my favorite New York sandwich, which is the lox bagel. And this one has some cream cheese, it has some lox in it, and some tomato. So on Shrove Tuesday, besides having the buns, of course, Finns traditionally have split pea soup. And even though Shrove Tuesday is a religious day, Finns aren't really that religious, and a lot of the traditions circle around pagan superstitions. Like for example, on Shrove Tuesday, the tradition was to eat a lot of fatty foods, and you were supposed to leave the fat on your hands, on your fingertips, and on your lips, and that would guarantee that your pigs would grow fat that year, that your cows would milk well that year. So another tradition that Finns have on Shrove Tuesday is to go out sledding on a simple toboggan called pulk. And the superstition was that the further you could sled downhill meant that your flax would grow taller that year and it would make better fibers for your linen. So even though Finns are not very religious, the traditions still live on in Finland. On Shrove Tuesday or the days leading up to it, you can get the buns everywhere in the stores. They are abundant. Any kind of cafe, you could definitely find them. And what you'll also find out that all kinds of cafeterias in workplaces, schools, maybe even in the army will serve split pea soup on that day because that is the tradition of Shrove Tuesday. So thanks for watching and join me on my channel, Finish Your Plate, where I explore the different dishes and baked goods of Finland.
Now that the buns have finished baking, remove them from the oven and place them on a rack to cool. They need to be completely cool before filling them. They should be fully cool after about an hour to an hour and a half. To fill them, there are 2 ways to cut them. The first is by cutting triangles. The easiest way to do this is with sharp kitchen scissors. Stick the scissors down into them and make 3 cuts. Remove the scissors and then gently tear off just the top of the triangle. Then use your fingers to pull out the bread from the center. Don't discard this bread. You're going to be using this in the almond paste filling. Set aside the triangle tops for capping the pastries at the end. For the fillings, you're going to want to pick up some good quality seedless raspberry jam and 200 grams of almond paste, which is softer than marzipan. I usually find it in the baking aisle, tucked away in a top or bottom shelf next to the marzipan. You're going to grate the almond paste and then put it in a food processor with 3.5 tablespoons of milk, plus the bread from cutting the triangles. And then you're going to blend that into a smooth paste. Then you're going to spoon it into each triangle, dividing it evenly. Alternatively, you could do this with a piping bag. For the raspberry-filled buns, I'm showing you the alternate way to cut them. You're going to use a serrated bread knife and cut the upper third of the bun, and then set aside the tops for later. Now spoon the raspberry jam into a piping bag or a makeshift piping bag like me from a Ziploc bag, and squeeze the jam evenly onto the buns. Now beat a pint or 475 milliliters of heavy whipping cream with a 1/4 cup or 25 grams of powdered sugar until you reach stiff peaks, and then you're going to spoon that into a piping bag. I'm using a real piping bag here, fit with a wide fluted tip. Pipe the whipped cream onto both types of buns. And then for the almond paste filled buns, you're going to put the triangle caps on the whipped cream. And then for the circular caps, I'm using a biscuit cutter here to give them a more finished look, but you could leave them as is for a more rustic look if you prefer. Then you'll want to brush something sticky on them. I'm using a little corn syrup, but you could use golden syrup or maple syrup or honey. And then you're going to dip that cap into pearl sugar. This product is kind of hard to find in the US, so I'll put the Amazon link for it in the description box. And then for the triangular buns, you're going to dust them with powdered sugar. So this is such a beautiful dessert and I'm really excited to try it. However, I watched my husband take a bite of one and it makes an absolute mess. So I'm not sure how I'm going to taste this on camera without embarrassing myself. Wow, that is very delicious. I'm actually surprised by the almond paste. It's quite bitter. I'm used to the flavor of marzipan, which has less of that bitter almond flavor. I like it, but I think I would prefer marzipan in these over almond paste. I wonder how well that would work, because I know marzipan has a slightly harder consistency. Almond paste is softer. I do like these. It's just quite a bitter flavor in the aftertaste. Let me try the raspberry now. That's definitely my favorite. I love that. That is so good. I love the sweet bun with the cardamom in it, and it has a perfect soft texture. And then the raspberry jam and the whipped cream together with the crunchy sugar on top is just perfect. I definitely recommend the crunchy pearl sugar over the powdered sugar, just because it gives it a little bit of crunch and texture that wouldn't be there otherwise. It's really good. And the awesome thing about this recipe is that it's actually the same sweet bun recipe as the Norwegian Skolebrød that I shared last summer. And those have a cardamom flavored sweet bun filled with pastry cream, and then they are glazed with an icing and dipped in coconut. So you can actually take the same recipe and turn it into something else, or you could split this recipe in half and make half Laskiaispulla and half Norwegian Skolebrød if you wanted to bring a variety of different sweet buns to an event or a coffee hour or impress your friends at a party. I think that would be a great idea. So thank you so much to Miko for doing this video collaboration with me and for introducing me to these delicious buns. I hope you give them a try, and make sure to go check out his channel on Finnish food and culture. It's called Finish Your Plate, and I've put a link in the description to his video where he shares a modern savory twist on the Laskiaispulla. While you're waiting for the next video, make sure to check out my Norwegian Skolebrød video as well as my Finnish cinnamon buns video, and I will see you next time.